Hey friends, here's an episode that I recorded at the very end of the month of January, and for whatever reason, it didn't make it out there to you, and so I'm posting it now and for your listening enjoyment, and I hope that you do, in fact, enjoy it. Hey, welcome to another episode of Spellstorm Miniatures. My name is Jeremiah, and this show is about miniature war games. And our goal here is to just inspire you to play more. This is the second episode of the year, second episode of the month. We try to get 2 episodes out every month, and boy, this one's coming in under the wire here. I guess the last day of the month. But here we are, and it's a solo episode. We've had to reschedule a couple things this month. I've had a couple guests lined up, and we'll have to postpone those for various reasons. And so today you get me, just me, and it's fine. I was actually planning on doing this episode earlier in the month. This is kind of a big episode for me because I'm going to be talking about my hobby goals for the year, and I have a really fresh goal, I suppose, and it comes from inspiration from a YouTube video that I watched a couple of weeks ago from Liam Dempsey. He's a pretty prolific 40K content producer. He's part of the Deploymazone.tv with SEO Winters, if you guys even know who that is. British fellow from across the pond. And anyway, he put out a video that he called The Impossible Pledge. And I 100 resonated with the things that he was talking about. And so what I wanted to do was sort of do my own impossible pledge. And so what this episode is me describing what my impossible pledge is, and then kind of going into what it's going to look like for me for this year, for 2022. One of the things we like to do is we like to share about our games and highlights and things like that, but I have no highlights to share. I actually had 3 different games planned and scheduled and on the calendar, and all of them had to get rescheduled or canceled for various reasons. And so I have no games to report, and I'm ashamed to say, but here in Oregon, I just saw a graph earlier today. We have like one of the highest peaks in terms of cases being reported for COVID, and so it stands to reason that I would get no games in, because I think a lot of people are being extra precautious, and that is a-okay. So I have nothing to report, no highlights, nothing exciting to talk about in terms of miniatures, but that's okay. So, what is the Impossible Pledge? Well, the Impossible Pledge is very simply no new kits, no new models for me for a season. And I want to explain how long that season is going to last, and explain why I'm not going to be buying anything new for a while. A couple of reasons. One of the reasons, I'll get into the why a little bit first, is, when I first started the podcast, we were, I think we were exclusively a War Machine and Hordes podcast, and, we played that game and made content for that game. But then I started learning other games, and I started getting interested in other models and other rule sets, and so I would buy random things and play them, and then I would go to game days and get demos done, and just had a great time learning some other games that I didn't know existed, and then being able to compare them with games that I loved and find elements that I thought were were really keen and maybe perhaps transferable to to other gaming experiences and things like that. And so I was sort of on this mission to play all the games. Some of you, if you've been with me for a while, you know some of my earlier episodes. I would say that my goal was to play all the games, and my co-host even razzed me quite a few times on air and off air that that goal is an unattainable goal. And I'm here to tell you that it truly is an unattainable goal. That I have failed at my mission to play all the games. And so, what I've done the last maybe 6 months or so, maybe 6 to 8 months, is sort of reflected on my hobby and how I engage with the hobby, and maybe a little Marie Kondo action, figuring out the things that bring me joy. And so I am here ready to admit that I cannot succeed in my previous mission of playing all the games, and I've come to terms with that, and I'm okay with that. The problem with, or one of the unintended side effects, I guess, one of the consequences of having such a mission was I was always jumping from project to project to project. I would have a unit of, some sci-fi game here, and a unit of a fantasy game here, and maybe a historical unit there, and they would all be sitting on my bookshelf or on my desk or on my armoire, and in various stages of disrepair or painting, and struggled really hard to finish a complete project. Like, I could finish small projects, finish the unit, go on to the next unit, right? But I rarely played with a fully completed paint and army, because I rarely fully finished a project like that. And so my goal is to no longer jump from project to project in the way that I once did, and instead, I want to focus on the things that I do have, the projects that I do have, that I love and that I want to finish and want to complete. And I think that's the other thing too, and the other reason why I want to take this impossible pledge is because I actually have a lot to play. I have a lot of things that are already built or primed or are painted, but I even have a fair amount of things still new in the box that if I would just build them, I could make some pretty fun lists, or some pretty fun army builds, depending on the game I'm playing, and have a great time doing that. There's nothing to stop me from doing that except for my own inability, I guess, to stay focused on a project and see it all the way through. And so my goal here, by taking this impossible pledge, is sort of twofold. One, it is designed to me to no longer pursue this impossible mission of playing all the games. It's also designed to help me to stop jumping from project to project and to see my current projects through to the end, and then also to play with what I have. I have a lot to choose from, so there's good reasons for me for doing this. Now you're wondering, well, what does this mean? This impossible pledge. You're not going to buy any new models. Does that mean you could buy old models? Does that mean you can buy, painted models from eBay or whatever? No, I'm not going to be doing that either, because I want to play models that I've painted, and so I don't want to be playing models that other people have painted. That's something that I'm trying to get away from. But more importantly, the idea of not buying new models means that I'm not adding to the projects that I'm currently working on. And during this impossible pledge, books are going to be okay. Like for example, Eldar's coming out, and they're going to have a new codex. It's going to pain me to not buy the new models, but I'm gonna buy the codex because I'm gonna need the codex to play, and of course paints and paintbrushes and things like that as needed will also be okay for me to purchase, but the goal is to work through the models that I have, and the reason why I'm taking this impossible pledge actually has more to do with a new subscription that's coming out and less to do with all the reasons that I just shared, although they are valid. But you guys may have heard about the Warhammer Imperium subscription that's coming out, and actually I got the email today, which is what prompted me to record this episode, because it was a nice reminder that it is coming. And actually, issue 1 apparently was in the stores last week. But when you do the subscription, they actually will bulk ship you. So you get, like, I think I'll get the first 4 issues all as in one package. And I'll get it next week or the week after. And that means I'll get issue 1 late, but I'll get the other issues early than what you have, than if you would have got them in the store or whatever. But my goal with the Warhammer Imperium magazine, actually, is to work through that as it's intended. I don't know if you've seen these videos or not, but every issue you're going to get a magazine, and you're going to get some model or a few models, and along the way you'll get various supplies like a paintbrush and some paint and things like that. And the goal is for you throughout the course of the subscription of this magazine is you'll actually end up with 2 armies. You'll end up with an Imperium army, which I believe is going to be Ultramarines and Sisters of Battle, and then you'll end up with a Necron army. And so you'll have 2 armies that will be able to face off against each other. You will have built them as they come in, painted them as they come in, and so my goal is by the end of, I think it's like 80 issues. I actually don't remember how many issues, but at the end of the subscription, that's what I'll be painting and playing. And even though as badly as I want to play Eldar, I was really intrigued by this idea of having a subscription, of having things mailed to me every month. I do that right now with my razor blades. I do that right now with some other things. And so it's like, why not try that for my number 1 hobby? And so I wanted to play the game. I wanted to play it as intended and do it as they intended for me to do it. And which means I'm going to fully commit. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty excited about that journey. So while that's happening, so I'm going to be getting models through the Imperium subscription. But while that's happening, that means I can't be going out and buying other things, because it's going to distract me from the project that's at hand. And so ideally, I would be able to keep up on that project. It'll help me with the timing of things. It'll help me set reasonable expectations for my hobby time and things like that. And so, and then if I have extra time, then I can work on some of the other projects that I have, some of the fantasy projects that I have and things like that. But I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to the journey that it's on. I'm also looking forward to just reading all of the little bits and pieces that come in the magazine. I feel like the 40K universe is a big, wide universe, and there's so much there. And people who have been playing for a long time, they know a lot about the game, and they know a lot about the lore and some of the factions that are there. And I just don't have that knowledge right now. And so everything that that I like about the game is real surface level. And so I feel like this is my opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper. So, which is good, because I love that stuff. So the Impossible Pledge is no new models throughout the duration of the Imperium magazine subscription, and then books are okay and paints are okay, that kind of stuff. That stuff's okay, but no new models. So I'm not asking anybody to join me on this. I mean, obviously you probably, it might be too late. Actually, probably not too late to join the Imperium subscription. You don't have to, but if you want to do your own version of the Impossible Pledge, maybe set your duration differently, or maybe even set the certain conditions that you want. Like, I'm not going to buy any new models until this army is completed, or I'm not going to buy any more models until these two strike forces are completed. Like, if you want to do your own version and you want to join me in the Impossible Pledge, why don't you let me know? You can put a comment at the end of this episode here. You can message me either on our Facebook page or on our Discord server. Let me know that that you heard the episode, you're intrigued by the challenge, and you want to take the challenge. So and I'll be obviously doing some updates as throughout the year. There'll be periodically we'll have solo episodes like this where I'll be talking a little bit more about my hobby projects and things like that. But I might even mention that sometimes in some of the episodes where we have a guest on and things like that. So with that being said, I should do one last confession time, because you'll want to know what I've purchased this year before the start of my subscription. And so I've purchased 3 models. I've bought a Welsh Warlord for a Welsh warband that I'm working on for Saga, and I picked up Lilith Hexfaith. She's an Archon, I believe, for the Drukhari army, and then Jane Czar, who's the Howling Banshee character for Eldar, and so I have them. I have not begun working on them, but I have them, and those are the hobby purchases I've made this year so far in 2022, and they'll be the last ones outside of the Warhammer Imperium magazine, which is set to do, like I said, next week or the week after. And so once that stuff starts coming in, that's all I'm going to be limiting myself to. And looking forward to that. I work really well with limitations and rubrics, and so I'm pretty excited about that. Let's see. Moving on to the next part of our episode where I usually talk about the hobby desk. Last week I started painting up some Monpok unit. I think they're called the Green Fury is the faction, and they're these really cool post-apocalyptic trucks that are all decked out, Mad Max style. And I decided that for my Monpok stuff, I want to focus on its color, and I want things to be pretty bright. And so I have one truck yellow, one blue, one red, one green, and at the moment they're kind of dull, and I'm not sure why they're dull. And so I think it could be the primer coat that I put on. There seems to be some kind of speckling or flaking, some texture on there, and so when the paint went on, it didn't go on smooth like I thought it was going to go on smooth, and so it doesn't have that bright, cartoony look that I want to go for. So I'm going to be playing around with them some more. They're not done. Just have the base coats on for now, and I'm going to touch up some certain spots and hopefully get them done before my first shipment of the Imperium magazine comes. That's what's on my hobby desk at the moment. And the last thing I want to say before I wrap up, this is a shorter episode. It's a solo episode. I hope that's okay. But I want to talk about things that are going on in the community. We have our paint party that happens every Thursday night, and during the pandemic it was huge because it was an important part of people's rhythms, because people weren't going out, and this was an opportunity for people to nerd out together and paint. And I noticed that as people have been getting out more, people haven't been attending as much, and that's okay. It's still there, and want to encourage people to come and join and paint. Last week we had a person join for the very first time, and we had a great time. We painted for about an hour and a half, and they had their daughter with them in the background painting too, and so it was just a lot of fun to be able to do that. And we paint on the Discord server. We have a couple channels. We have a couple text channels dedicated to our hobby desk, and then we have a voice channel that we use while we paint. And some people turn on their cameras, and so we can look at each other while we do that. But I want to encourage you to do that. And then the other thing that we have is a monthly book club, and the goal is to read books that inspire us to play more games. And this past month, we just finished reading Starship Troopers, and so we met yesterday, and it was a lot of fun because a couple of us in the group had never actually read the book, and although we seen the movie or whatever, but it's fun to see one of the original, or it's fun to read one of the books that actually was an inspiration to a lot of the games that we play, and we can definitely see that in the story and things like that. And so that came out in our conversation. For the month of February, we're going to meet again on the last Sunday of the month. We usually meet in the afternoon at like 1. It's like a perfect time to have a conversation about a book, and it doesn't interrupt the day so much. We can still do things in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever. We don't know what the book is yet. The book hasn't been selected, and so if you want to join in on this month's book club, I want to encourage you to to get on the Discord server, because it'll be announced in the book club channel. So with that, thanks for letting me ramble. Thanks for letting me just kind of talk. I want to encourage you to get the word out. Let people know about us. You can find us at spellstormminiatures.com, and you can leave us a good review on whatever podcast catcher you use. That would be helpful. And but I also want to encourage you to join the Discord server. That seems to be where a lot of the life is. So thanks for listening, and we'll get more episodes out to you soon. Thanks. Boom.